wish to assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
Is it your intention to assert your Fifth Amendment privilege with respect to all questions that I ask you?
Yes.
I only have one other question, Your Honor.
What was that, Mr. Holman?
Detective Furman, did you plant or manufacture any evidence in this case?
I assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
Uh-oh. 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 That is Mark Furman pleading the Fifth when he was asked whether he had been truthful and honest and whether he had planted evidence. All right, folks, we are back here on Straight Out of the Cannon with me, Scott Cannon. It is 7:38 in the PM. That means I got about 22 minutes before I got to get out of here before Dr. Williams comes in with the 2x4 and starts regulating. So let's get through this if we can. Yes, you just heard Mark Furman, Detective Mark Furman of the LAPD, pleading the Fifth in a murder trial when he is asked if he had actually planted evidence. And he pled the Fifth because they had videotape of him planting evidence, and also he had lied about saying the N-word and claiming that he wanted to do certain things to N-words. I'll just say that. Again, I don't know why a bigger deal wasn't made of that at the time. But to me, a lot of these sort of random facts of the case sort of have helped solidify my opinion that I don't believe that O.J. Simpson killed Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Like I said, I've had my mind changed about this in recent years. I was sort of ambivalent about it, leaning towards he probably did it until looking into the facts of the case. Just some random facts in the case to sort of bring home how just out and out bizarre this case was and the types of people that were involved in this case. A man named Kazimir Sucharski was a friend of O.J. Simpson. He was murdered execution style alongside two female companions in his Malibu home just 2 weeks after Nicole and Ron were murdered. He had a record of minor drug and weapons arrests and also was caught up in a drug sting aimed at O.J. Simpson in the late 70s. Did you guys know that Sharon Osbourne, wife of shock rock legend Ozzy Osbourne and one of the most powerful managers in rock and roll, said that that O.J. and Nicole used to be well known for supplying drugs to A-list Hollywood celebrities, and this annoyed some gangsters who put a hit on them. And she said she think that they killed Nicole, and that's why O.J. panicked and ran, thinking that he was next. See, I didn't know anything about this. I had no idea about this. Did you know that Al Cowlings once served as a bodyguard for a convicted drug smuggler named Joey Ippolito, and Joey Ippolito actually escaped from a Florida prison 3 weeks before the murders and made many calls to O.J. Simpson. Now, Frankie Vicerto was a known mafia hitman and one of Joey Ippolito's closest associates. He was a hitman that was very close to Ippolito, and in the past, Frankie Vicerto was known to torture and behead his victims with a knife. Did you know that Nicole Brown Simpson's sister, Denise, was often seen and photographed with ex-mob enforcer and FBI informant Tony Fiato, who was a recruit of Ippolito? I bet you didn't, because the media didn't tell you about any of this. Did you know that Tracy Alice Hill, a stripper who was arrested on cocaine charges in the beginning stages of the trial, the OJ trial, she had a suitcase that was full of 40 pounds of cocaine. and her purse contained 2 phone numbers: Al Cowlings and O.J. Simpson. I'm just saying, that's who these people were involved with. If you want to, looking at the facts now of this case, I understand why O.J. acted a damn fool for the rest of his life. I understand now why he acted a fool for the rest of his life. Because he knew that the types of people he was dealing with and that Nicole were dealing with would make him disappear in a heartbeat if he was out of the public eye for too long. So I'm guessing OJ was absolutely afraid, terrified of being away for too long, or being out of sight, out of mind for too long. Did you know that there was an all-white grand jury in Santa Monica at the beginning of the OJ case that refused to indict O.J. Simpson prior to being dismissed? Now, there was an author and historian named Donald Freed who covered this investigation. He said they tried to indict O.J. with the all-white grand jury for the murder of Nicole and Ron Goldman, but they refused to do so because of lack of evidence. So for 30 years, the black community has been tarred and feathered as being irrational and just wanting payback for the Rodney King verdict, and that's why O.J. Simpson was not convicted of killing his wife. When, in reality, an all-white grand jury was dismissed because they refused to even indict O.J. for lack of evidence. I bet you didn't know that. And this shows you again how the media and how everybody sort of works their mind tricks, huh? The prosecutors were the ones who wanted the case in L.A. They were the ones who moved it. They wanted black people on the jury pool. It was the prosecution that thought that black women would be more likely to convict O.J. Simpson. One, because he was married to a white woman, and they thought black women had hostilities toward black men who had married white women, which is true in some instances. Which is true from what I've seen in some instances. That is true. But also, the belief is that it was the white community that did not take domestic violence seriously, not the black community. Oprah and everybody else tarred and feathered the black community, saying we didn't take domestic violence seriously, when in actuality, the reason that the prosecutors moved the case to LA was because they thought the black community took domestic violence more serious than white people did. And they thought black women would be more likely to convict OJ. I'm just saying, everybody. Caller, hold on. I got to get through some more of these. Just shows you some more of the bizarre stuff going around this case. There was a man named Philip Taylor Kramer. If you're a rock and roll fan, that name might sound familiar. He was the bass guitar player for the rock band Iron Butterfly. And I don't even think you have to be a rock fan to know the song In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, baby. That's him. One of the greatest rock songs of all time by any measurable metric. It's one of the biggest hits ever in rock and roll. That's his band, Philip Taylor Kramer. Well, after he retired from being a rock star, he became a computer engineering executive and inventor. He was a genius. He was a literal computing genius. He obtained a degree in aerospace engineering and worked on the MX missile guidance system as a contractor for the U.S. Department of Defense. So this man was very brilliant and very heavy. He later worked in the computer industry on fractal compression and facial recognition systems and advanced communications. Now here's a Jackson connection. He co-founded a company called Total Multimedia with Michael Jackson's brother, Randy Jackson. Yes, that Randy Jackson from the Jackson 5 to develop data compression techniques for CD-ROMs, which was a very new technology at the time. They claimed they developed the very first video compression capable of producing full motion video from a single speed CD-ROM in the early 90s. This would have been far before anybody else. This man, Philip Taylor Kramer, was hired by the FBI. He was hired by to analyze by the LAPD to analyze a videotape that the FBI and DEA had on the O.J. Simpson murder trial. He was hired to analyze this authenticity. Because again, this dude was a genius. Now, this is where it really gets bizarre. On February 12th, 1995, this is in the middle of the trial, he drove to LAX to pick up business associates. On the way to the airport, he telephoned his wife to tell her that his plans had changed and his business associates and his wife should go directly from the airport to a hotel where he and his wife would meet them later. And he disappeared after this. During his travel to and from the airport, he made a flurry of cell phone calls, including to his wife, his former band member from Iron Butterfly, and finally to the police. What did he say in these phone calls? I want everyone to know that O.J. Simpson is innocent. And that was the last anyone ever heard of Philip Taylor Kramer alive. He was found 4 years later, dead. Nobody ever heard of this man ever again. He was hired by the LAPD to analyze video that they had of O.J. Simpson, and apparently what he found was not to their liking, allegedly. Now, they claim that he had likely committed suicide, but Philip's father, Ray Kramer, was the first to dismiss the idea of suicide and revealed that people were interested in the work he was doing with computers and made threats to him. So I'm just saying, when you look at the overall facts of this case, how bizarre a lot of the things that went on in this case were, that we were not told. Did you guys know that there was a serial killer that worked for Nicole Brown Simpson? An actual serial killer. His name was Glenn Rogers. In the documentary, Who Killed Nicole, by OJ's former manager, Norman Pardo, he showed the prison letter in which Glenn says OJ did not contract him to do anything to Nicole. Glenn had dated Nicole Brown Simpson and done paintwork on her condo, and that's how he came into contact with her. According to the documentary, OJ wanted Ron to stop dealing drugs to Nicole, and he ended up murdering Ron and Nicole. His brother said in My Brother, the Serial Killer, that's his book, My Brother the Serial Killer, that drugs were the reason that Glenn got involved with OJ, Nicole, and Ron. So again, there's serial killers involved, there's mafia people involved, mafia people with OJ, with Al Cowlings, with Nicole's family, her sister, with Ron, his father, his stepmother. There are mafia people involved. There are people who have come up missing, multiple people who've come up missing, people who've had their cars blown up, 3 waiters and people in the service industry who've been murdered violently. And yet, we are supposed to believe that a 47-year-old broken down former football player with arthritis, with bad knees and a bad back, was supposed to have by himself killed two relatively young people. 25-year-old Ron Goldman, who was a bodybuilder, who was a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo, and 20 years younger than OJ, and Nicole Brown Simpson, who, again, it ain't like she was, you know, she was a woman, but she was still young enough to run away or to scratch OJ, which apparently she didn't, because there was none of OJ's DNA under the fingernails of Ron or Nicole, in spite of the fact that it is very evident that Ron fought for his life and beat the crap out of whoever killed him. I'm convinced OJ is the person least likely to have killed Ron and Nicole at this point. And if you could somehow find some way that he did it, he had help. He did not do it by himself. There's just no way that it is possible for OJ Simpson to have killed Ron and Nicole by himself. It's not possible. And so this case that enraptured America and tore America apart was, in my opinion, purposely exploited by the mainstream media, who have spent 30 years hiding and lying about some of the more intricate details of this case. Whew, my God. I guess I have to tell you, like I tell you every week, don't trust the media. You cannot trust the media, folks. You just can't trust these people.